Hello, we're here at live at the GroupM Rooftop. I'm Harry Hugo. I'm the Chief Campaign Officer and co-founder of the Go agency, GroupM's influencer agency, and I'm with Deniz, who's the global head of media and content at Bayer. We're here to talk about influence marketing in healthcare. It's an interesting topic. Creators are a massive thing here in Cannes this year, and over the course of the last few years, it's got bigger and bigger. How important are influencers now in your media strategy at the business you're working at now?
Thank you, Harry, and pleasure to be here. I'll start with our bold mission at Bayer. Our mission is health for all, hunger for none. So in consumer health, we take it very seriously. And for us, empowering the consumers in terms of educating them on healthcare, their wellness, to help them take informed decisions is very important. And historically, to do that, we were heavily relying on search and websites where the consumers were coming to get information and to understand their symptoms and how to treat them. But as we all know, times are changing and social and influencers are a huge part of our lives. And we see that more and more our consumers are relying on social media and creators on also healthcare topics. So this is why within our communication, influencer marketing has become a huge interest and a huge focus area lately. One of the things that we're trying to understand is, one, how do we educate our consumers better?
Yep.
Second, how do we help them understand how our products differentiate and help them? And also, we want to educate them on broader topics beyond our products, like topics on women's health, self-care, and I believe this is something that's very purposeful, and that's what we are also trying to tackle within our influencer marketing strategy.
And how has that changed over the course of the last few years? You get new platforms that become relevant. Obviously, TikTok has become a huge platform, and you obviously mentioned search there has been such a major thing over the course of time for Bayer and healthcare in general, with Google probably historically, but now TikTok has become a huge search platform as much as it's become a content platform. How do you see and how do you use those different platforms and influencers within them?
What we believe is that communication should be done holistically. So this is why when we have a communication plan, we try to integrate everything within. Social and influencer marketing needs to be within the whole mix. And you mentioned TikTok and the search that's growing within TikTok. In our domain, for example, healthcare searches, they're growing exponentially. And one, it's helping us to come up with insights on what is relevant for the consumer. Second, we also try to understand what type of creativity and what type of messaging becomes more relevant with the consumer. And to do that, the best way to understand and find out what would be relevant for the brand is understanding how the creators communicate. And TikTok has been a huge enabler to do that. What we try to do in terms of planning our communication is, one, look at our audience mix, look at our target group, and understand what's the behavior, where if certain audiences have, certain consumer groups have a tendency to use one platform more than the other. And this is how we plan our communication strategy.
And we've done some work together in the Nordics with Barocca, which is one of your key brands. And that was about identifying those sort of audiences and using those platforms. And do you want to talk a bit about what we've done together and why that was so important as a first step?
Barocca is our energy brand, energy vitamin brand, and it has a wide audience. But in digital and social, we have the ability to target them differently. So if you tap into different audiences, like sports, travel, students, moms, then you have the ability to also engage them with different messaging, with different types of audiences. And this is where the partnership with Go became really helpful and helped us to one, leverage scale, second, tap into insights, and then be able to create the creatives that would be relevant for the target audiences.
And your title is media and content, and those two things are like so paired together with influencer, because influencer allows you to create specific creatives, like you just said, and pair it with a huge amount of reach with the followers that these influencers have across the social platforms. How do you see those two things working together with influencers in mind, where lots of other media platforms are less reliant on thinking about the creative at the same time as the media?
At Bayer, we always talk about media and creative integration. This is valid for branded content, this is valid for influencer content, because 50% of the effectiveness comes from the creative.
Yep.
So unless we nail the creative, the impact we get from the campaign is very limited.
I suppose then why it's so important to work with the creators themselves in order
Exactly.
to identify exactly what sort of creative will land with their audience.
Exactly. So working with the creators, helping them to understand and experience our products, and then naturally tell the story through their lenses. One, it creates much more relevancy for the consumer. Consumers can relate much more. Therefore, we see much more engagement compared to branded content. And it ends up with driving things like ad recall, consideration, preference, which is great. Because if we leave our marketing hats and if we just start thinking like a consumer, I think about myself and how I do decisions on choosing brands or trying a new brand. Relevance becomes really important. Relating to someone and thinking that, oh, they have experienced this before and it seemed to work well. It's like at some point you feel that you're friends with the influencers. So the relation between the communities and the influencers is unbelievable. And I think this is going to become bigger and bigger. And as brands, we have to understand it early on. So we are there organically, naturally, and with authenticity.
And then do you pair that with paid media as well in order to target those communities even deeper? Is, you know, that relationship between organic content and paid content has become much more integrated in influencer over the course of the last sort of 3 or 4 years. Is that something that's something really focused on at Bayer?
Absolutely. We promote the content we create with the creators through paid media, and we're seeing very good signals in terms of media efficiency and effectiveness. Because of the high rate of engagement, the effectiveness is higher, and also we're seeing the costs lower versus branded content in some cases. We are still experimenting a lot, so there's a lot to learn, but we are looking at the performance of our creator content in 2 angles. One, how does it impact the brand? And second, how does it impact the sales? Which is equally important. So we have 2 different levers.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question around measurement and understanding from a planning stage what you're looking for from an influencer campaign. What are those things that when you sit down in that first meeting going, this is what we want to do with influencers, what are you looking for as the outputs for success?
It depends on the campaign objective, because in some cases, for the brand, it's utmost critical to build top of mind awareness. In some cases, we want to educate the consumers. Let's take, for example, Women's Health, Caniston. Caniston is a brand that has different products across women's health, and it's an area where women are not educated that well. So in that case, sometimes our objective is purely to educate the consumers, so it actually builds brand loyalty and brand equity in the long term. But in some cases, there's an expectation of driving immediate sales conversion. And in that case, we set KPIs that are catered to more lower funnel. So our measurement framework depends on the objective of the campaign. And we treat the influencer marketing campaigns in the same way that we treat our branded content campaigns. because we need to be able to have an apple-to-apple view on the performance.
Yeah, that's really important. I think something that is developing quite a lot in the influencer and media space in general is making sure there's things that are like directly comparable. And I think 5 years ago, when the influencer space started to develop, they were trying to compare influencer to other media objectives, but using very, very different metrics to judge them. And I think that is starting to change. But one thing that is really, really important as more and more budget flows into influencer is speed of action, because it's imperative to get the best results. You're obviously in healthcare, which has a lot more regulation on how you talk about things and how things are positioned. How can you at Bayer focus on executing things from a speed perspective as much as a quality and regulation perspective?
I'll start with our motto of speed over perfection.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
I wish more clients said that.
And we do have a testing mindset. And when you have a testing mindset and you're okay with speed over perfection, then you can do more of this stuff freely. With influencer marketing, working with the creators, what I really love is that for companies like us, the production time is long.
Yes.
And usually it's very long. And sometimes we get irrelevant based on which trends we want to talk about. But with creators, that's totally doable because the production time is very fast.
Yep.
And then we can act on the trends very fast. And this is, I think, where the difference and another potential of creator communication comes in. For brands like us, huge companies where you have hefty processes in place for approval versus being able to be on air in a couple of weeks' time, it's amazing. And working with a partner who can help you streamline the processes, make everything around contracting, campaign planning, reporting fast and easy is super helpful.
And it allows us to get the best metrics out of what we're doing, right? And you say everything else seems to take so much longer, and influencer, because it bridges the gap between being able to create the production, the creative, and distribute it all in the same conversation. It's a way for you to get out there much faster and stay relevant, like you said. If you were to give one tip, having worked across the last few years in this space, what would be the tip for anyone kind of coming into the influencer space and increasing their budget significantly in spending with creators?
I will talk about strategy. If influencer marketing has a key place in a brand strategy, then the brand needs to take chances and risks. And I think this is where a lot of brand teams become uncomfortable, because it means that the investment will be different. You need to let go of some of the guardrails you have in place, and you need to look at creativity from a different lens. So I think overall, I'd say being comfortable with being uncomfortable is the key to do more of influencer marketing, because to me it's a no-brainer now in our category, in a lot of categories, and I think people just need to think as consumers, not as marketeers.
It's an incredibly refreshing point of view, and I think that has summed up the change in how people think about influencer over the course of the last 2 years. Gone from being not aligned in the budget to definitely aligned in the budget, but not sure what it's going to look like, to now a couple of years down the line where people have to take a bit of trust and a bit of a leap of faith on trying new things as the market becomes a bit more crowded. What is it that what do you think allows you to stand out from the pack from an influencer and creator perspective?
I think overall as a company, we put the focus in place. It's within the strategy. And second, having a partner who helps to tackle some of the hurdles you get across is very helpful, because it's not easy. The change management is not easy.
That's true.
So this is why I think the partnerships become extremely important.
Because it's moving so fast.
It is moving so fast. The platforms are changing. And there are new formats, new ability to use AI. So there are so many things that happen so rapidly. Having the right partner to help the brands to tackle this is very important. And this is our approach to actually like everything in communication, having the right partners so we can have a stronger team in place, not just Bayer, but Bayer plus our strategic partners, which helps us to differentiate and get ahead of in the game.
Well, Deniz, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
here
you.
on the GroupM Rooftop. It's been a pleasure talking to you about influence in healthcare, and we love working with you guys at Bayer. And
Likewise.
enjoy the rest of your camp.